Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to start with the GIT. We are finished with the respiratory system. I'm going to start with GIT. Assuming that you would all be coming back, then we would keep serious. Now, first class, I'm going to introduce you to GIT. So, GIT is a long portal or gate through which nutritive substances, your vitamins, minerals, body fluids enter your body and become useful to the body. And become useful to the body. Okay? To sustain life, all these nutrients are essential. So it is a long tract which is more than 10 meters long, starting from your mouth. It has got pharynx, esophagus, small intestine, large intestine, rectum, and the anus. So when you keep the food in the mouth, then along with saliva it enters the pharynx. From there it goes into the esophagus. In esophagus, because of this contraction and expansion movements or relaxation movements, that is peristaltic movements, the food enters the stomach. From stomach, again it goes into the small intestine. Small intestine is divided into three parts, that is duodenum, jejunum, and the ileum. So ileum gets merged with the large intestine. Comparatively, small intestine is narrower and longer. Then it gets merged with the large intestine at the cecum. There, cecum and the ileum, there we have got a sphincter called ileocecal sphincter. What is the significance of this sphincter? It allows only the outflow of food, that is, the food can come from the cecum into from the ileum into the cecum, but not the other way around. From the cecum, then there is the vermiform appendix which ends in a blind end. From cecum, then we have got, it goes up on the right side called the ascending colon. Ascending colon, then there is a flexure, a sharp bend is there, that is called the hepatic flexure. Then we have the transverse colon, which again bends on the left side, that is the splenic flexure, and it comes down on the left side as continues as descending colon. Then it will turn on to the left as sigmoid colon. Then there is a rectum and the anus. The anus has got two sphincters, external anal sphincter and the internal anal sphincter. So all this digestive system is more than 10 meters long. So what are the functions of the digestive system? Usually the food what we eat contains carbohydrates, proteins and fats. They are broken down into absorbable units, mainly in the small intestine. And from there, the food through the mucosa of the small intestine enters the circulation, the blood or the lymphatics. So the main aim is the food should be broken down into smaller units. It should be broken down into smaller units, so which should be useful to our life. So to sustain our life, they should be broken down into smaller units. The vitamins, the nutrients, minerals and the fluids, they all should be broken down. Now the first function of the digestive system is ingestion. Ingestion means, again, first is the ingestion, then is the digestion, then the absorption, then the ingestion. So ingestion is further divided into ingestion involves placing the food in the mouth. That is the first step. We are putting the food in the mouth, then chewing the food into smaller pieces. Then we chew the food with the help of our teeth, tongue and all help in making the food into smaller pieces. That is called mastication. Then the third is we moisten the food with salivary secretion. Then we swallow the food, that is deglutition. Deglutition. So these are, in ingestion we have got 4 subclasses. So first placing the food in the mouth, then chewing the food into smaller pieces, then moistening the food with the salivary secretion, and swallowing of the food is the deglutition. Deglutition itself is a different class, altogether a different class. Okay, now we have finished with the first function, that is ingestion. Then the next function is the digestion. In digestion, by grinding action of the GIT and by digestive enzymes, food is broken down into smaller particles, and that smaller particles are useful to our body to sustain our life, to keep our life going. They are broken down into smaller particles which are useful to our body. So how are the starches broken down? Starches are degraded by amylases into monosaccharides. Proteins are degraded by variety of proteases into dipeptides and amino acids. Fats are degraded by lipases and esterases into monoglycerides and free fatty acids. So starches are broken down by amylases into monosaccharides, proteins by proteases and into dipeptides and amino acids, and fats are degraded by lipases and esterases into monoglycerides and free fatty acids. So we are finished with ingestion, we are finished with digestion. Then the third is absorption. What will happen in absorption? During absorption, nutrients, water, electrolytes are transported from GIT, mainly from the small intestine. They are going into the circulation. That is absorption. So egestion. Fourth one is egestion. In egestion, undigested food along with the various secretions and the sloughed off epithelial cells from the GIT, they pass into the rectum and constitute feces, which are voided to anus at periodic intervals. So the 4 functions are ingestion, digestion, absorption and egestion. Absorption and digestion. Okay, next one. Coming to the organization of structures of GIT. GIT is usually it is the same from the pharynx to the anus. The GIT is composed of these following layers only. So it's just the same wherever you take the GIT, you take the cut section, all these layers are seen. The topmost layer, first layer is called the serous layer. It is also called as serosa. Then comes the longitudinal smooth muscle layer. Then comes the circular smooth muscle layer. Then the submucous layer, and the last one is the mucous layer. We are coming from outside to inside of the GIT. So outside is the serous layer. Then comes the longitudinal smooth muscle layer. Then the circular smooth muscle layer. In between this longitudinal and circular smooth muscle layer, there is a plexus called myenteric plexus. The other name for this is Auerbach's plexus. It's called myenteric plexus or Auerbach's plexus. This is present between these 2 layers, and this plexus innervates both the longitudinal smooth muscle and the circular smooth muscle. Then in between the circular smooth muscle layer and the submucous layer, we have one more plexus that is called submucous plexus or Meissner's nerve plexus. Both are one and the same. So the myenteric plexus is also called as Auerbach's plexus. Submucous plexus is also called as Meissner's nerve plexus. So below the submucous layer, the innermost layer is called the mucous layer. Now coming to each of the layers, the first one. So you can see the serosa on outer side. Then comes the longitudinal smooth muscle layer. Then there is a circular smooth muscle layer. Between longitudinal and circular smooth muscle layer, you can see a plexus that is called Auerbach's plexus or myenteric plexus. Then in between the circular and submucosa, you can see one more plexus there that is called Meissner's plexus or submucous plexus. Then innermost layer is called the submucosa. So if you take the cut section, how does it look like? The topmost layer is called the serosa. So what's the function of serosa? Serosa will attach to the surrounding structures from the gut to the surrounding organs. Serosa will attach itself from the gut towards the surrounding organs. Then you get a longitudinal smooth muscle layer. Then there is a circular smooth muscle layer. So these layers help in the forward local mixing of food and the forward propulsion of food. So local mixing of food and forward propulsion of food is the function of these two layers. So in between those you can see a myenteric plexus. Then comes the submucosa layer. Submucosa will have the lymphatics, the blood vessels and the loose connective tissue layer. Submucosa will have three things in it. It is the blood vessels, so the lymphatics and the loose connective tissue layer. Then comes the mucosa. Mucosa, innermost layer is the mucosa. Here the cells are resting on the basement membrane. The third layer is again further divided into three. It is called the smooth muscle layer of the third layer is called muscularis mucosa. The connective tissue layer is called the lamina propria, and the innermost layer, epithelial cell layer, which is on the resting membrane and it is thrown into folds, is called the villi. Now coming to each layer, so you can see all the 5 layers and the 2 plexus in between. The serous layer, this layer helps in the attachment of gut to the surrounding structures. So this layer, the outermost layer, this helps in the attachment of the gut to the surrounding structures. Then we have a longitudinal and circular smooth muscle layer. These layers help in both local mixing and forward propulsion of the contents of gut. So these layers for help in mixing of the food and forward propulsion of the contents of the gut. The circular smooth muscle layer is very thick at the sphincters. Then we have got the submucous layer. It consists of loose connective tissue, the blood vessels and the lymphatics. So we are finished with the serous layer, the longitudinal smooth muscle layer, circular smooth muscle layer, submucous layer, and coming to the innermost layer is the mucous layer. It consists of 3 different structures. Smooth muscle layer of this is called the muscularis mucosa, connective tissue layer is called the lamina propria, and innermost epithelial cell layer resting on a basement membrane and thrown into folds called villi, and these cells are lined by columnar epithelial cells. These cells are lined by columnar epithelial cells. They have hair-like processes on their surface called microvilli. This will increase the surface area and has role in absorption of digested food and the secretions. So by increasing the surface area, it has got a role in absorption of the digested food and the secretions. Coming to the innervation of GIT, examination point of view, this is important. It is also called as enteric nervous system. Called enteric nervous system. They might ask you the question just like enteric nervous system. So innervation of GIT is divided into 2, intrinsic nervous system and the extrinsic nervous system. So in intrinsic nervous system is further divided into 2. I have already told you about those. Those are the myenteric plexus and the Meissner's plexus. So myenteric plexus is also called as Auerbach's plexus and the Meissner's plexus is also called as submucous plexus. Myenteric plexus is present between the longitudinal smooth muscle layer and the circular smooth muscle layer, whereas the Meissner's plexus is present in between the circular smooth muscle layer and the submucous layer. So it is divided into myenteric and Meissner's plexus. Now coming to one by one. Myenteric plexus. Myenteric plexus. It is the intrinsic innervation. It is also called as Auerbach's plexus, and the main function of this plexus is it is motor in function. Motor in function. So whenever this plexus is stimulated, its effects are it increases the tone of the gut wall, it increases the intensity of the rhythmic contractions, it increases the rate of the rhythmic contractions, It increases the velocity of conduction of excitatory waves along the gut wall. So in short, we can say all these are helpful in peristaltic movements of the gut. So all these functions will bring about the peristaltic movements of the gut. Okay. So what are the four important things? When myenteric plexus is stimulated, it increases the tone of the gut wall, it increases the intensity of the rhythmic contractions, it increases the rate of the rhythmic contractions, it increases the velocity of conduction of these excitatory waves along the gut wall. So all this will enhance your peristaltic movements. So all the places we can't say this plexus is excitatory. When the nerve endings, when the neurotransmitter is VIP, that is vasoactive intestinal peptide, those are the inhibitory neurons. When they act upon their action, we can see on the pyloric sphincter and the ileocecal sphincter. When I say inhibitory, when it is inhibitory function means it can relax. So the food from the pyloric sphincter, the food from the stomach will enter the duodenum, and in the same way from the ileum it will go into the cecum. So it has got inhibitory effect there. Inhibitory effect means, in other words, it will relax the gut there. So this action is seen near the pyloric sphincter and the ileocecal sphincter. So pyloric sphincter, the food from the stomach will enter the duodenum, not the other way around. Okay, and the same way it from the cecum, the opening is only from the from the ileum, that is the third part of the small intestine. From the ileum, the food enters only into the cecum, not the other way around. So this inhibitory neurons are present in both the sphincters. Okay, everywhere it is excitatory, means contractions are happening, but here it is inhibitory, means relaxation is occurring. So because of the neurotransmitter, there is vasoactive intestinal polypeptide. So it is acting near your pyloric sphincter and your ileocecal sphincter. So forward propulsion only is seen, not the backward flow. This is about your myenteric plexus or the Auerbach's plexus, which is present between the smooth longitudinal smooth muscle layer and the circular smooth muscle layer. So it is motor in function. So intrinsic we have seen about the myenteric plexus. Now we are seeing about the Meissner's plexus or the submucous plexus. Whereas the earlier one was motor in function, this is sensory in function. Submucous plexus is sensory in function. It will control the exocrine and endocrine secretions. What do you understand by exocrine secretions? Means from the duct it is coming into the lumen is exocrine. Some of the examples are salivary secretion, gastric secretion, intestinal secretion, pancreatic secretion. All these are exocrine secretions. Endocrine secretions means they will directly act on the target tissue, target organ, that is via the blood. So what are the endocrine? Endocrines are your gastrin, CCK, pancreozyme. All these are your endocrine secretions, and this layer innervates the submucosal blood vessels. Meissner's plexus will innervate the submucosal blood vessels, because I told in the submucous layer we have got the blood vessels. So this layer will innervate the submucosal blood vessels. So myenteric and Meissner's we have seen. Myenteric is motor in function, whereas Meissner's is sensory in function, and both these plexus are interconnected to each other and they are under the extrinsic control. Both intrinsic Meissner's and myenteric both are interconnected and they are under the control of the extrinsic innervation. So extrinsic innervation is your autonomic nervous system, that is further divided into parasympathetic fibers and sympathetic nerve fibers. So parasympathetic and sympathetic nerve fibers. Okay. So on the left side you see parasympathetic nervous system, on the right side you see sympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic means it is craniosacral outflow. Cranium, most of these fibers of the parasympathetic, they come via vagus. You can see your vagus. So, and it innervates. I'm interested in the regions of gut. So, from the vagus it comes and it is innervating your liver, stomach, duodenum, small intestine, and pancreas, and first half of your large intestine. Only the first half of your large intestine is innervated by your vagus. Okay. Now, craniosacral outflow, cranial, it is coming via your vagus nerve. Most of the fibers are in the vagus nerve. Then the sacral are coming from L234 and via the pelvic nerves. They are coming via the pelvic nerves and they are innervating the later half of your large intestine all the way to the rectum, anus. It is innervating your bladder, it is innervating your rectum, anus. So L234, these are very important for your defecation reflexes. So if we have finished autonomic nervous system, so here preganglionic fibers of the parasympathetic nervous system are long. Preganglionic fibers are long. So where are the postganglionic fibers coming from? These postganglionic fibers are present in this mesenteric and Meissner's plexus and the myotic plexus. So the postganglionic fibers from there are very short. So in parasympathetic nervous system, preganglionic fibers are very long and the postganglionic fibers are short. This is about your parasympathetic nervous system. Then coming to your sympathetic nervous system. So sympathetic nervous system, the fibers are coming from T5 to L2. Fibers are coming, what are innervating the gut I am talking about. So they are coming from T5 to L2. So T5 to L2, the fibers supplying the gut after leaving the spinal cord will enter the sympathetic ganglion. Here you can see a sympathetic ganglion. So from the sympathetic ganglion, they are coming into the to the celiac ganglion and various other ganglions like superior mesenteric ganglion, inferior mesenteric ganglion. So from the spinal cord, they are going towards the sympathetic ganglion, then to the celiac ganglion and the superior and inferior mesenteric ganglions. So these are the preganglionic fibers. The postganglionic fibers, neuron bodies are present in this ganglion, celiac ganglion, superior and inferior mesenteric ganglion. From there, the postganglionic fibers will go and innervate the gut. So on the contrary, here the preganglionic fibers of the parasympathetic nervous system are very long. Here the preganglionic fibers are short and the postganglionic fibers of the sympathetic nervous system are long. So that is the difference between parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. Now coming to what is the function of the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. Coming to parasympathetic, extrinsic innervation I said is parasympathetic nerves and the sympathetic nerves. So coming to parasympathetic nerves, here they are also called as cholinergic fibers. Why cholinergic? Because the neurotransmitter is acetylcholine. So by releasing acetylcholine, it causes depolarization of the smooth muscle membrane and produces the contraction of the GIT musculature. Depolarization means from negative it is going towards your zero. From negative it is coming towards zero. That means it decreases the stability of the membrane. It decreases the membrane potential. So it is due to the influx of sodium. Okay, so by releasing acetylcholine, it causes depolarization of the smooth muscle membrane, producing contraction of the GIT musculature. So parasympathetic, as I've shown you in the earlier diagram, is divided into cranial and sacral division. Cranial parasympathetic nerve fibers are almost entirely in the vagus nerve and they innervate the esophagus, stomach, pancreas, small intestine and first half of large intestine. Sacral parasympathetic nerve, they originate in S234. segments of the spinal cord and via the pelvic nerves supply distal half of the large intestine and all the way to the anus. These fibers execute your defecation reflex. So S2, 3, 4 are execute the defecation reflex. Parasympathetic postganglionic neurons of GIT are located in myenteric and Meissner's plexus. I told you where these plexus are in the GIT. So parasympathetic postganglionic neurons of GIT are mainly located in myenteric and Meissner's plexus. So what is their function? When this is stimulated, when this plexus is stimulated, stimulation of parasympathetic nerves to GIT causes increase in the motility and tone, relaxation of the sphincters. It will increase the secretion from the stomach and of the intestine, especially of the enzymes. So whenever parasympathetic is stimulated, there is increased secretion of the enzymes. So this is your parasympathetic nerve supply. Coming to the sympathetic nerve supply, sympathetic innervation is called adrenergic innervation. Adrenergic. So adrenergic means here the neurotransmitter is noradrenaline or adrenaline. So by or the same noradrenaline or norepinephrine or adrenaline or epinephrine are one and the same. So by releasing norepinephrine and epinephrine at their endings, at the nerve terminals, causes hyperpolarization of the smooth muscle membrane, result in relaxation of GIT. So what is hyperpolarization? From minus it is going towards more minus. So this will increase the stability of the membrane. This will increase the membrane potential, and this is due to the slow efflux of your potassium. So by hyperpolarization of the smooth muscle membrane, it causes relaxation of GIT. Earlier one, parasympathetic, due to depolarization, it was causing contraction. Here sympathetic, because here the neurotransmitters are different and they act differently. So by causing hyperpolarization of the smooth muscle membrane, it causes relaxation of the GIT. So where are the sympathetic fibers originating to supply the GIT? They are originating in the spinal cord between segments T5 and L2. Between T5 and L2, the preganglionic fibers enter the sympathetic chain and pass to celiac and various mesenteric ganglions. I showed you in the diagram. So they are from the sympathetic, they are T5 to L2. T5 and L2, we are concerned only about GIT. Don't look at the top pictures. Just look for this bottom picture. So T5 and L2, they are after leaving the spinal cord through the sympathetic ganglion, they are going towards your celiac ganglion, superior mesenteric ganglion and inferior mesenteric ganglion. So these are your preganglionic fibers of your sympathetic nervous system. Postganglionic fibers are in these ganglion and they are supplying the gut. So preganglionic fibers, they enter the sympathetic chain and pass to celiac and various mesenteric ganglion. Postganglionic sympathetic neuron bodies are in these ganglia and they spread to all parts of the gut. So I have told you about the preganglionic fibers and the postganglionic fibers. So stimulation of the sympathetic nervous system inhibits the activity of GIT. It inhibits the activity of GIT. So it will decrease in motility and tone. It will contraction of sphincters and it will inhibition of secretions from the stomach and intestine, exactly opposite to your parasympathetic. So it will decrease the motility and tone, it will contract the sphincters, it will inhibit the secretion from the stomach and intestines. So mainly of the enzymes. Yeah, I think that's it. Hope you have understood. Thank you.